And welcome in to the Week 15 wrap-up show. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale, Frankie Santiago, bringing you guys our takeaways, our 3-and-outs from the weekend. It was another interesting one. A lot of fantasy standbys. They've been there all season for managers. Crap the metaphorical bed this weekend. Devontae Adams finally had a down game. DK Metcalf had a down game. Some big running backs either weren't there or had down games. James Robinson unfortunately couldn't get it done for managers in the fantasy playoffs.
He did get injured, but
yeah, you can't predict for injuries, but
Aaron Jones was freed once again.
Yes, Aaron Jones finally did Aaron Jones things after if you made it this far with him, he finally did Aaron Jones things.
Derrick Henry continues to be Derrick Henry.
Reminds us why he's amazing at football. Mm-hmm. But we can get to all that as we get into the show. Frank, you want to take us away with your 3-and-out first?
Not really, but why not?
Well, before we do that, as it is our last week of regularly scheduled programming, make sure to like this video, subscribe, so you can always get notifications when the new content comes out. Especially important during the off season because we're not going to be on this regular schedule. You want to have YouTube yell at you when new stuff comes out. So, especially important to hit that bell. Follow us on Twitter so you can get all the notifications and all of our musings on anything that happens in the playoffs or the off season. And I almost forgot about this part. We got some news to do real fast also. Who likes news?
It's a good thing I didn't want to take it away then.
No one likes... I would have cut you off. Yeah. No one likes news. There is some sad news this week. Bunch of players that you were probably kind of hoping were going to be there for the finals. Not going to be. Starting off with Cam Akers. He looked like he was going to be a league winner for people. Just really hitting his stride at the right point. Figuring out the NFL, catching that rookie wave. Oh, nope. He's got an ankle. He's already been ruled out this week. So, if you were counting on Cam Akers against Seattle, a fair assumption that you might have been, he's not going to be there for you.
Looking at you, Garrett.
Daniel Jones, ankle and hammy, questionable to play Week 16. Zeke, calf, quote unquote, may be available in Week 16. I think if you're probably just because I assume if you're a Zeke manager, you also had Tony Pollard. You're probably hoping Zeke just sits because he's sucked. Yep. Pollard is he just seems like he ran well. He seems like the better play. Devontae Parker, hammy, questionable for Week 16. They're not sure if he's gonna be able to suit up yet. This one's a little bit better. Diggs, foot. Reports are not overly worrisome, says Coach Sean McDermott. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess. I mean, they said the same thing about Josh Jacobs, and then he missed 2 weeks. So, reports are not overly worrisome. Great. Show me the practice reports. CMC quad. They're hopeful he will practice this week.
They needed to sit him for the rest of the season.
What is hopeful they will... Not even hopeful he'll play. Hopeful he will practice. What even is that?
Are the Panthers even playing for anything at this point?
I honestly don't. I haven't looked at the NFC playoff picture in a bit. Let me check.
Because if they're not, I mean, what's... I mean, I get CMC wants to get out there and be like, yeah, I can still play, but what's the point?
It might... Yeah, I guess, yeah. If they aren't playing for anything, what's the point of even trying to get him out there this week? Because I guess CMC is the sort of player where if he can practice, he can play, but...
I don't know. I mean, I did see that they just fired their GM this week.
So that's fair.
You got to figure that they're probably looking to shut it down and get building for next year. So
it does appear that they are out of contention for the playoffs. They are not on NFL's playoff picture part of their website. They are not listed as a team in the playoffs or a team on the bubble.
Yeah, so they're completely out.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I would just sit him at this point. Just get him healthy for next year. He's as you said before, he's a guy that has a lot of mileage on those legs. Just send him to the golf course early. Thanks for everything you've done, Christian. We'll see you in 2021. That seems like the smartest thing to me. CEH, he's effectively done for the season. he may come back in the play. He has a chance to come back in the playoffs. But as far as fantasy managers are concerned, you're not getting him back in the regular season. He might not even be back for the Chiefs playoff run. So sucks for him. Another guy where, I think he's probably better off just, especially with them having Le'Veon Bell to just run out there, just let CEH get healthy and say, see you next year. And then we'll end on a high note. Hurts is remaining the starter. He was officially declared that today, much to everyone's shock after Carson Wentz demanded a trade if he wasn't named the starter. Doug Peterson said, okay, well, Hurts is still our starter, so,
Well, I mean, where do you think Wentz is going?
That is going to entirely depend on how much money the Eagles want to eat. I mean, if the Eagles are eating enough of his contract, there's a whole bunch of teams who will take a shot at Carson Wentz, I imagine. I mean, he's been a good quarterback before. If you have like a no money investment to him, sure. I mean, Patriots could take a shot at him. Colts could take a shot at him. Basically any team that needs a quarterback and isn't just in full on rebuilding mode. So, probably no Lions.
Yeah, I think the Colts would honestly probably be the best fit. I mean, Rivers is getting up there in age. He probably wants to be done pretty soon.
I mean, it's also just one of the things where there's going to be a bunch of quarterbacks in the market this season, so he might, Stafford's going to be the belle of the ball if he gets traded. So he might be the consolation prize. Who doesn't get Stafford? All right, well, we'll take a shot at Carson, I guess.
I mean, Wentz could make himself the belle of the ball by just restructuring his contract and cutting a lot of. If he can restructure and get his number down to the point where he becomes a valuable trade chip for the team, that other team with the caveat, maybe he'd be like, all right, if you tell me who I'm being traded to, yes, then I'll restructure my contract. Or if he tells the team after he gets traded, I'll restructure if you take me. Something like that. I think that's his best route. Whereas at least Stafford's still making big money, and he's a little more banged up than Wentz. But I mean, both of them are pretty injury-prone quarterbacks at this point in their careers. I want Stafford right now, but if Wentz restructures and makes himself like a mid-money quarterback...
Well, but restructuring doesn't matter if the Eagles are eating the money.
Yeah, but the Eagles are going to want more back, so more teams will probably step out.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I personally, I wouldn't restructure if I was Carson Wentz because, he doesn't owe them anything. They were the ones that made that. He was the one that made that got them to make that poor decision to sign him long term. So, if they're gonna try and sell him down the river, let him sit there, let him rot. Why should he care? Yeah, that's gonna be a topic for over the offseason though. The quarterback carousel, seeing who's going where, who's landing some of the shiny toys from this upcoming draft. Because I know there's Fields and Lawrence, and I thought there was a third one that was kicking around. People have been talking about, but I forget his name.
Yeah, I haven't seen another one, but it's definitely at least two.
Any news items that you guys wanted to bring up that I didn't mention?
I have not seen any. No.
Nothing of fantasy relevance, no.
Okay, well then let's get into the 3 and outs. Frankie, now you can take us away.
Are you sure? Any more news?
This just in. I'm going to throw a speaker at Frankie's head.
All right. So, game of the week for me, anyways. Chiefs and Saints. At least going into it, I was thinking, this is probably going to be another classic game. Great shootout between the old guard, as Vitale calls him, and the young star Pat Mahomes.
The new guard.
The Saints did not look particularly great in the first quarter or even the second quarter.
You know who did look great though? Some of those throws Pat Mahomes made against that defense.
Oh
my god. Those were buttery smooth.
The one back of the end zone to McCole Hardman?
Yeah. He was throwing sidearm 40 yards down the field into I was like, oh, he's so good at football.
Regardless, that's not what I'm talking about here. Breeze, historic pass completion percentage. 15 for 34 on the day, which is, pretty atypical.
Sure.
He did manage to salvage it in the second half, bringing it back. 234, 3 TDs. Had a couple of nice long balls. But there were some throws in that first half where I was just sitting there thinking, why is he throwing these ducks up? That pick that he threw, I don't know if it was the pressure or if it's the injury, if from getting hit. I don't know how many times he got sacked. I know there was at least a couple. But, he just didn't look comfortable out there. And, from the Saints offensive line, we've seen them. They've always protected Breeze. He's always had time to throw and sit back there. And you can't really blame. The defense did let up points, but you're going to let up points against the Chiefs. But they also forced the season high 5 or 6 punts for them. So it's not like, Breeze was constantly on the field after they scored. And I mean, at the end of the first half, the Saints could have scored on a touchback, but they just whiffed the ball to the back of the end zone. I think with Michael Thomas being done for the season, I mean, I think one of the only pieces that I feel comfortable going into the championship is Kamara. I mean, his ceiling is just too high. I mean, you can't sit him even in an unfavorable matchup. I mean, Jared Cook looked good out there too, but I don't really feel comfortable with any of their other pass catchers other than those two.
Yeah, Cook's, as we've said many times in the show, Cook's basically just always in contention because he is a tight end who gets targeted. We've seen him do it before. We know that Cook has a monumental ceiling. They like him in that off. He's clearly their primary red zone threat aside from Taysom Hill. Like, I'm kind of with you there. It's Cook, it's Kamara, and you're just you're weeping for the Saints of yesteryear.
I was very confused when I kept seeing Taysom Hill line up as a wide receiver. And I get that they do that sometimes, but I feel like I noticed it a lot more in this game, and I really didn't know what was going on.
Sean Payton was just was the goofy meme, uses Taysom Hill, I'll do it again.
I don't know, looking at this team, it looks like, I don't know if it was rust or just having to swap the offense back from the Taysom Hill system or whatnot, but the more I look back at just the totality of the season for the Saints, this is a team I'm very interested in their offseason because if Breeze sticks around, we've seen the story of the first half of their season was they were excelling with short yardage, which the Patriots were doing that last season, and we know that they were just a shell.
Yeah.
Yes, they can score when they only have to go 40 yards, 30 yards down the field, and they have some talent around there to kind of cover up. But Breeze is not looking good. Kamara can only make up for so much. I mean, he was playing well, but Kamara himself, you look at his season as a whole now, he exploded to start the season. He just ran out to running back one. But then when the injury hit and Breeze started coming back down to earth, he just kind of was like a whatever RB1. He'd come out, get you 15, get you 16, maybe a 20 point. His 20 point in higher games, his ceiling was not there anymore.
I mean, I imagine that Breeze is going to play next year. He is on a 2-year. I was just checking. He is on a 2-year deal right now. Next year's the last year on his deal, and he's making a pretty penny to come back next year. So I think we're going to see Breeze back there next year. To me, if he comes back and the offense doesn't really change at all, this is kind of an offense that I want to avoid. Breeze hasn't looked like Breeze for a couple of years now. Kamara, we've seen him disappear. He relies on the heavy usage through the passing game because Sean Payton just doesn't want to use him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's just, and then Michael Thomas, I've always kind of felt that he is more of a product of Breeze than being an elite receiver. And I think if you put him on another team, he's not as good. He needs Breeze to be excelling for him to have the major role that he does, or him to be the major fantasy impact. I'm kind of out on this team outside of maybe Kamara, but Kamara might be overdrafted next season, I feel like.
Yeah, specifically this week, they're playing on Friday, I think, on Christmas Day against the Vikings. I'm going to expect a lot of running the ball. It's Breeze.
Yeah, and you can score on the Vikings. So, they could end the season with a bang here.
Yeah, I like, even with, Cook having that high ceiling with, Thomas out, and I think that someone else is on that team is banged up too. So
Breeze.
Well, it was either Smith or Harris, one of the two, but I'm not even sure how I feel about that. You can throw on the Vikings, but I don't think they're going to need to, and I don't think they're going to want.
It's going to be the Alvin Kamara show, and probably Taysom Hill.
So, going into my next point, probably having the most unsexy name in fantasy football. When you think stud running backs, I don't particularly think David Montgomery.
That's bold to say that David Montgomery has the most unsexy name in football.
If you have the last name Montgomery, you have an unsexy name. Regardless, not the point. I think that this season, however, he started off a little bit slow, but since the bye week, he's been pretty consistent. You pretty much got what you expected, by the end of the year, especially if you're drafting in the 4th or 5th round. I think he's sitting up at the RB9 right now. That's partially due to a lot of injuries to these high tier running backs. And even then, you slot in all those guys, he's still probably an RB2, which, I mean, if I'm picking him up in the 4th or 5th round, I'm fine with. And I guess he's over excelling to that point. He's averaging 27, almost 28 fantasy points over the last 4 games, 434 yards total, 5 TDs, which, it's a TD a game and about, 100 plus yards. So,
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where he goes next year with all the injuries.
I mean, he's basically doing what we kind of thought he was going to do in the preseason. He's slotting in more or less, honestly, where we thought Mark Ingram was going to be, where he's just doing consistent, not sexy stuff. He's out there, he's getting you 40 to 70 yards, a touchdown, sometimes 2, and if he gets 2, you're thrilled. He's a mid-tier running back 2 on this Bears team. I would love to see what he looks like with an actual offensive line, because I do feel like he's a good running back.
Yeah.
I feel like he is hampered by Matt Nagy's play calling, the fact that they don't have a quarterback or an O-line. Like, the fact that he's performing at all is outstanding.
Yeah, I think the main fact, honestly, I think it's the QB trouble. Like, they don't have a signal caller on that team. They're jumping between these 2 guys, and I think with a little more consistency at that, even.
Well, you don't think Mitch Trubisky is a good quarterback?
Well, I mean, week in, week out, it's going to be, is it Trubisky or Foles? But I think that, especially this week, he's got a cake matchup going against Jacksonville. So I think that the way we've seen him performing lately.
This is the week where he Raiders.
Yeah. No.
I think for me, like he's a guy I liked going into this season, and I think he's done kind of what we expected, but not what we hoped, which is the downside there. But because he's popping off late here, I'm kind of worried for his next year value spiking up a little bit and having that Kenyon Drake effect, where it's like, here he is, he's finally broken out, and we're going to talk about him also like Joe Mixon, where we're going to look at how much they used him at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So we can project that going forward. If you took his last 4 games, this is his 16 game pace, and you're going to hear that a lot. I'm going to temper it. If I can get him again in the 4th, I'll be happy, because I think this is the running back you want. If you're a running back, if you're a tight end or quarterback truther in those first few rounds, this is your money running back, because you can then go running back, tight end, quarterback, wide receiver, and then him, and you'll at least have a stable team.
A strong squad.
You'll have a strong squad.
Good floor there.
Right, and he won't hurt you. But I think with this late in performance, and if he does ball out against Jacksonville and has a solid week 17, he's going to creep up into the high 3rd. I'm worried.
So I think I'm fine taking him in the high 3rd next season based on what he's done this year, with the caveat of I want to see what the Bears do this offseason. If the Bears have a good offseason, let's say they go out and they get they trade for Carson Wentz, or they trade for Matthew Stafford, or they, move up in the 1st round to get, Fields or Lawrence somehow. I'm interested in I think the Bears have a strong squad there. If they can, put some pieces on that O-line, fix it up a little bit like the Browns did, and get an actual signal caller under center, I'm fine taking Dave Montgomery higher, because he deserves to be taken. And just because he's not a value doesn't mean that he's not worth being taken in the 3rd round. I need to see some consistency somewhere else on that Bears team before I feel comfortable taking him in that range, though.
So just to put it to you real quick, so let's say he is going around that top 3rd, and the only thing they really add to the offense is Matthew Stafford. Are you in on him as a high 3 pick, round 3 pick?
Yeah, I'd be in on that. I think Stafford's a good enough quarterback where they have to respect the passing game more in that case. And we've seen that with Arizona this year, where not with Kenyon Drake, but with Chase Edmonds, they don't have a great offensive line, but having to respect Kyler Murray back there, the fact that he can run and throw. But we've seen it with Jalen Hurts. A good quarterback under center opens things up for a running back. We're seeing him do it without a quarterback right now. So, Stafford back there can only help.
Okay.
And my last point, another guy you're very happy with, pretty much where you drafted him. I cannot say how happy I am to say that Calvin Ridley has had his year. In the middle of the season, we all kind of expected that fall off because he was on a crazy pace for yards, touchdowns,
Yes.
whatever. whether that be the up and down play of Matt Ryan or just Julio still being there and obviously being the focal point of that offense. But I think, with the Julio injury, that's been hampering him for as long as I can remember. And, the way the Falcons constantly have to throw the ball because they can't seem to hold the lead or, get a lead. I mean, I think that both of those things were something that made Calvin Ridley kind of overtake Julio. And I think Julio might be on his way out, or at least to a different team. He's averaging 18 points a game, currently wide receiver 8. I mean, I picked him up in, the 4th or 5th round this year?
3rd round.
No, I picked up Galladay in the 3rd round. So I picked him up in the 4th round.
Yes.
I mean, I was happy with him while he was on my team. And, if I had kept him, I would still be happy with him. I mean, he's proved that even with Matt Ryan, being Matt Ryan, having those ups and downs, that he's going to get his targets. I mean, he's hit double-digit targets his last 3 games, 2 against top 10 defenses with 100 yards in every game. I think that, especially this week, he's going against the Chiefs, who are 2 against wide receivers, but, I'm locking him in there because he's basically the Allen Robinson of the Falcons. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his yards, no matter how much Matt Ryan sucks. Because, now they have, Ito Smith running the ball. Todd Gurley's not even the starter anymore. I don't see a way the Falcons are going to win games without, pummeling Ridley with targets.
So to put this one to you, Frankie, if the Falcons stay the same going into next year, is this the Roddy White, Julio Jones year? Like, is this the passing of the torch where Julio becomes Roddy?
Honestly, I'm avoiding Julio next year from drafting.
He's not going anywhere. He's under contract until 2023. So
I'm just avoiding him from the sense that I'm not gonna. If I have to pick one of these guys, I don't care who's take where they're going aside. I'm picking Ridley because I think that he's the safer play. Julio, in my opinion, is probably one of the best receivers that we're ever going to see as far as talent. But Ridley, I think, he's probably going to stay healthier. He doesn't have a hampering injury that we know about, and I think that they're kind of transitioning from Calvin now being the Julio to Julio's Roddy White.
We've seen Calvin perform with Julio on the field. They can clearly support both Julio and Calvin with this offense because the Falcons suck, so they have to throw a lot.
They throw the ball a shit ton.
Yeah, they're airing it out all the time. Ridley has been performing fairly consistently with and without Julio. I think the biggest thing that I see that I like here is that he can perform as a wide receiver 1 with he doesn't need Julio to draw the top coverage so that he can ball out. He does plenty well by himself. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the start of phasing out Julio. And we've seen Julio have a lot of just nagging injuries this year. This is typically what takes down those big body wide receivers. We just saw it with AJ Green, where he missed 2 seasons basically because he just couldn't stay healthy. Would not shock me if that's what we start to see more of Julio Jones, where instead of playing 14 games now he plays 10 or 9, and you are getting more of those. You're getting a consistent top 15 wide receiver out of Calvin Ridley with the ability to be a top 5 guy if he's the only show in town.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with this team to see what they do because a lot of times when teams have an aging quarterback, they're not winning games. We've seen a lot where they kind of swap up game systems, and we could easily see the Falcons start swapping to a defensive-minded team. And
they would need a defense for that.
Yeah, pouring picks and free agents into that defense, so they can make the transition on offense and try and win that way, and then find the guy while they have a defense.
I think they just have too many issues with that team right now. They need to fix almost everything. Their defense is bad, their coaching is bad, their offensive line is bad, their running game is bad. The passing game is really the only thing that's mediocre. Speaking
of which, the Falcons passing the ball a shit ton. Matt Ryan does still hold the most pass attempts this season currently.
Yeah. I would be surprised if they pivot away from that, especially with maybe once they move on from Matty Ice, but I think while they have him there, they're going to keep trying to build it around him because you kind of have to at this point. He's not the most versatile quarterback, so you kind of have to play to his strengths, and it's tough to switch over. They'd have to bring in they'd have to bring in a coach that can, build a better defensive culture there for them, and then also sign some free agents and hit on some picks in the draft because their defense is one of the worst. Like, it's not like they're a piece or two away. They're one of the worst defenses in football.
Yeah, and it's sad because I can't remember the name of the guy they drafted recently who was up there for D-Roy when he was drafted. I think it was a couple years back. But, I mean, I know that the other Harbaugh brother, he's looking to come back, and he's pretty solid when it comes to defense. So.
Jim, I think?
Jim or John? I can't remember. One of the Harbaughs.
It's Jim.
The other
I believe
Harbaugh.
John is in Baltimore, and I'm going to check. But
Yeah.
I always get them
One
confused.
of the Harbaugh brothers does want to come back to the NFL. I could see him scooping up that Atlanta job. It is one of those things where I think the best thing for the Falcons is to trade Julio while he's got a few years left to a contender. To try
It is
to
Jim.
Trade him, get some picks back, just try and leave the offense where it is. Put some guys on the line just to keep Matty Ice upright, but just let Cal Brindley do his thing. Just leave Gurley there. Just grab some pieces and try and build this defense. Because if you can get a young defense going, then you can kind of really put anyone under center. A la Denver Broncos with an aged Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Who can barely throw.
I mean, that was also like that was like an all-decade defense, though. Like, it's hard.
That defense was incredible.
Yeah, like that. They had a lot of mean players on that defense. Like, it's you don't just fall ass backwards into a defense like that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I was just trying to use the prime example of that, where you can win with just a really, really good defense. But
all right, I'll break down mine next. My first one, I want to touch on Baker Mayfield and the Browns' success. I'm not trying to tell you guys that Baker is the next coming of Peyton or Tom Brady.
Are you sure?
But he does seem to finally be hitting his stride. He's been playing very well in the second half of this season. The Browns are shockingly one of the best teams in football currently, and it really comes down to, I think, the guy that they hired to replace Freddie Kitchens, Kevin Stefanski. I mean, he took that dysfunctional Browns team from last year, turned them into a winning football team, and the biggest area that you're seeing this improvement in is Baker. He had a big downturn after his explosive rookie season last year, and he's back up to being kind of what you expected when you drafted Baker, and then when you saw what he did in his rookie year. He's back up to 64% completion percentage, touchdown rate of 6.2%. So that's great. Like, he's making. I don't know if you guys have been watching a lot of Browns games. I have, just because I love Nick Chubb. But
Baker's looked good lately.
like, he's making the throws. It's not just like he's he's not like a vintage Alex Smith under there. Like, he's pushing the ball downfield. He's making throws into all all three levels of the field, short, medium, long. He's fitting into tight windows. He's showing good decision making.
It's not like the beginning of the year where people were saying, "Oh, like the Browns are winning despite Baker Mayfield."
Yeah.
Now we're seeing Baker kind of grow throughout the year, and this is what I like to see when I see these young quarterbacks. Is now they're winning because Baker's playing so well.
Yeah, I mean, this Giants defense, one of the best defenses against quarterbacks in the league so far, or at least fantasy points wise. Baker came in and punched him in the mouth. Like, Baker looked great in that game. He's looking good overall. Honestly, I feel like, and the defense is still an issue here, so they probably aren't going to the Super Bowl this season. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see this Browns team put together a little bit of a run in the playoffs, because their defense, while it's not playing great right now, they do have some players on that defense.
Yeah, Denzel Ward's back now.
Yeah, like they've got some talent that's just kind of underperforming right now on that defense, and their offense is just kind of clicking on all cylinders. I'm excited to see what they can do with this team. I really hope they move. I guess my only real takeaway that is kind of negative, I really hope they move on from Odell Beckham in the offseason.
yeah, talk about a surprising thing is that your star wide receiver goes down, your offense gets better. Like, man, that's damning for him. Like, he's, for all his talent and all the plays that he can make, like, so far, 2 teams he has just shown as a net negative for just the culture and just the offensive production.
And think how long it's been, too, since you've really seen him consistently make those plays.
True. Like I said, right now it's mostly just been pre-game warm-up catches that he's making. But then again, when there's no pressure, I think a lot of receivers that are in the league can make it, especially with those gloves.
Sure, like that hype video of Larry Fitzgerald from a few years back where he was making one-handed catches upside down.
Complete sidebar. Did you guys see that catch by DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's a man.
Hands like glue.
He's a man.
Yeah, surprising for me is just seeing that net negative out of him and wondering what's going to happen with him. Like he just needs. I think OBJ just needs a culture change. I don't think this is the place for him. And I figured the way to success for him was going to be them moving to like almost like a Patriot style offense. Now that their lead dog was Jarvis Landry and they have such a great run game, I was figuring they would try and run a lot of like play action. Set that up with punch you.
I mean, they are. They're running basically the same offense that Kevin Stefanski ran last year in Minnesota.
Yeah, Baker's running more bootlegs now.
Yeah,
he never ran bootlegs last year.
Kevin Stefanski, and credit to him too, because like this is his first head coaching job. He's barely been a coach in this league, and he's coming in and he's immediately making an impact in Cleveland. But they look like the Minnesota Vikings from last year, who were also a good team. If they can improve that defense, they're going to be we'll be talking about the Browns as the potential best team in the AFC North, which is going to sound weird.
I mean, aren't they currently also already like?
No, the Steelers are still above them.
True.
Yeah,
Better than the Ravens though.
That's just a stacked division right now.
Yeah,
it's a rough division to be in.
Yeah, you feel bad for the Bengals. They have no hope. Also, they're gonna have to do something about. He's not just gonna go quietly into the night. I just looked up Odell's contract. Also under contract until 2023. For not a insignificant amount of money. My next point here, speaking of people who are under contract for not insignificant amounts of money, how about them Cowboys? Man, is that... You knew that the Zeke contract was going to look bad at some point. 6 years, $90 million. But you didn't think it was going to look bad 15 games into year one of the contract.
To be fair.
No.
And I will say this before you continue. Dak is injured.
No, that doesn't affect Zeke. Tony Pollard just ran great. Zeke has been bad against bad defense. Zeke has just been objectively bad. If you've been watching Zeke, like when I say that doesn't affect Zeke looks slow.
He does look slow.
If you're watching, yes, it affects Dak not being back there versus Andy Dalton affects how much we have to respect the passing game. But this also doesn't look like the same Ezekiel Elliott. He's 26 years old.
He's still young.
Not for a running back. He's got a lot of. I mean, he's been in the NFL for what, 5 years now? He's got a lot of mileage on those legs. He didn't exactly get a light workload in college. I mean, you can't like say he doesn't deserve the money because he does, but it's especially with, and this is the real reason I want to talk about him, especially with a guy like Tony Pollard behind him, who is a objectively good running back in his own right, 3 years younger and not even making $1 million a season. You got to question the decision making in that Cowboys front office. Like Zeke is already bombing on that contract. Tony Pollard looks like the better running back at this point in Zeke's career, and they're not even through year one of that contract. They got him through his age 31 season. And I think the biggest and most damning thing about this, especially now that we've got to see Tony Pollard have a little bit of run and he's been successful, also behind that Dak-less offensive line, this could stop them from keeping Dak. So if missing Dak is an issue, it could be an issue for all 6 years of this contract because they paid Zeke this much money and because they paid Amari Cooper that much money, they might not have money for Dak Prescott. It's insane because I watched a little bit of this game. Tony Pollard looked good back there. It's insane to me that they had that guy in their system and they chose to ball out for Zeke knowing their quarterback was up for a contract, and the fact that he wanted a contract and the fact that they know he wasn't taking a hometown discount and they still paid Zeke. It's insane to me.
Yeah, Pollard looked good out there. It's just, I mean, you got to feel bad for Dak too because I mean, they paid Zeke the bank.
No, I don't feel bad for Dak because Dak's a very good quarterback. Dak is going to get paid no matter where he goes.
Yeah. This was just the worst year to have Dak go down because they were looking electric as an offense to start the year.
Yeah.
Zeke wasn't looking great, but you figured there was going to be bounce back with how good they were playing. Like, you wonder what this team might have looked like if they were coming out full steam.
Oh, Dak could be at 7,000 yards by now.
Yeah, if they're going full steam into this playoffs, and Dak is playing well, the Cowboys might want to shell out for him. They'll move some stuff around and just deal with having 3 very heavy contracts and just try and go as young and as cheap as they can on that defense. Like, now Dak's getting to sit there and look at this dysfunction, and his price to stay in Dallas is not getting any cheaper. Like,
his price is going up.
Yeah, he's either gonna, if he stays in Dallas, it's gonna be on like a 2-year huge contract. He's like, I'll be here for 2 years, and then I'm definitely leaving.
I would be surprised if he even accepted a 2-year contract, just because of how contracts work in the NFL. You want to, Dak's in his money making years right now. He's a quarterback, so they last longer, but you never know when your time is going to be up in the NFL. Like, I'm just checking something here. Yeah, like, and this is what I want to find out. So the cap is projected to go down next year, from 217 to 176. The Cowboys are with that drop. The Cowboys will be 2.2 million over the cap. They just don't have money for Dak anymore. Like, that's the biggest thing that I already thought that when they gave him that contract. But I was like, you know what, Zeke's still a good running back. Maybe they'll get a few. Maybe it's an Ortiz contract where you're gonna hate the end of it, but you'll love. But we didn't hate the end of it, but I guess so. Maybe it was maybe a Jeter contract would be the better example, where it's like you're gonna hate the end of it, but you'll love it while it lasts, and then you don't even get that. Like, he is legitimately going to cause them to be unable to re-sign the future of their franchise. Like, that's a franchise killing contract.
Yeah.
Shout out to Zeke.
Yeah. Someone had to finally kill the Cowboys, and it was Zeke.
Yeah, I mean, this might be finally, like, if Dak leaves, this might be finally, I mean, granted, it's still Jerry's team, so he has final say, but, like,
Jerry's kid's got to put him in an old folks home.
Jerry has never made it more clear in the history of the last 2 years that he has final say whenever anything happens.
Jerry's kid's got to put him in an old folks home.
Granted, they didn't need it, but he did make a good pick with CD. CD does look like one of the better picks made in this draft this year.
Good. If only they had, let some high-priced receiver walk because they were drafting CD, so they could, save some money for their quarterback. That'd be dumb, though. All right, and then speaking of dumb people, it's been real negative with mine today. Actually, no, the Baker one was positive. I started positive and then just...
Yeah.
Holy shit. The Jets can't even tank right. Like, what's going on in that front office? Like, sure, it looks ugly if you're just losing out. But and they can say all oh no, we're not trying to lose. It's just been a tough season. But like, everyone knew that they were tanking for Trevor. Everyone. They literally threw the previous game. They actively threw a game. And then they do this. They go out and they beat the Rams. They give up the first overall pick to the Jaguars.
Yeah.
I do, like, I'm sitting there watching this game, and I see them with the lead with like 2 minutes left, and I know that front office is just calling them, change the play, do something stupid, lose the game, tie, go to overtime.
Yeah. They made the very poor decision of gaining a lead against Jared Goff. You can't trust Jared Goff to bring the game back. Like, I am officially at the point where I have no idea how Adam Gase still has a job. Because before I could at least rationalize, like, okay, fine. He's the patsy. He's gonna lose out. And then maybe they decide, because they hired him to be the quarterback guru for Sam Darnold, which hasn't worked at all if you're keeping score at home. But they hired him to be the quarterback guru for Sam Darnold. So maybe they were like, yeah, we'll have Gase lose out. We'll get Trevor Lawrence. We'll have Adam Gase, turn Trevor Lawrence into a superstar. Maybe that was their thought process. Well, now you're not getting Trevor Lawrence. So why is he still here? How is this is the most insanely bad team. Like there's nothing working on this team. They've already fired, parts of their coaching staff. Just clean house.
They pretty much fired everybody but Adam Gase at this point.
Legit, just clean house. Like, speaking of franchise-killing moves, like this guy is like the next Andrew Luck, the next Peyton Manning, like as slam dunk a quarterback as you can get, and they just punted him away. Like, and you know, saying like, oh, you know, their goal is always to keep Sam Darnold, and they were just gonna put pieces around him. Well, guess what? You just also lost a very valuable trade chip, probably the most valuable trade chip we've seen in a decade. Like, any way you spin it, this win was just purely bad for the Jets. He needs to be fired, like, now.
Oh my God, it's even better. Now that, as I'll go into when I talk about the Patriots just lost Stephon Gilmore for the rest of the season. There's talk that they're going to start Jarrett Stidham. There's a good chance that when the Patriots, who I'm assuming are going to lose to the Bills next week, when they play the Jets will probably still only have one win because they're still crappy, but the Jags will also probably still only have one win. I could just see Belichick staring across the field at Gase and just like throwing the game, even though he's a man who loves his wins.
He hates the Jets.
He hates the Jets, and what would be better, winning one game or sending Trevor Lawrence down to Florida? Like, woof! Like, I could just see it. Stidham, he goes out there, he's like, "Listen, kid, just throw one a little off. Like, just sails one right into some D-back who wants to go to another team. Just catches it, runs it back for 6.
I mean, honestly, Stidham doesn't even have to really try to throw. Like, Stidham just does that naturally.
Honestly, the Jets defense didn't look that bad in this game.
I mean, Goff makes any defense look good.
But they were getting him a lot.
Goff is a coin flip. Goff is either like the best quarterback you've ever seen or the worst quarterback you've ever seen, and he doesn't even know what Goff is coming out before the game.
So
like,
he's a younger Matt Ryan.
That's a different story. Like, I mean, I'm happy because I hate the Jets, but like, I'm flabbergasted. Like, how is Adam? Like, this guy has job security to die for. He is actively failing. Like, imagine if, like, put this in like sales perspective. Like, imagine if you missed your quota 13 weeks in a row. And your boss was like, yeah, you're fine. Just keep. It's like, no one has this guy's job security. How is he still employed?
Yeah, I can't remember the comedian off the top of my head. It's perfect when they were talking about like the Detroit Lions and they lost every single game. He goes, those are my heroes because go to your job every day for 16 weeks, do it wrong, and then drive home in a Bentley. That's my hero right there. Like, I cannot believe that they would even consider like the fact that quarterback gurus would even be attached to him. Disgusts me because this is not Peyton Manning when he was a rookie. You got Peyton Manning after he was already basically a Hall of Famer. He was just going to a new team and like is still riding that high.
Oh yeah, not basically like he was already a Hall of Famer. It was just like, is he going to be first ballot or first ballot?
Yeah, Adam Gase has to have plot armor or something. It's
that or just the season ends and he gets booted and then we're just like, oh, they were just trying to use him to tank.
The Jets leadership just doesn't care at this point. They're like, the season's already done. We'll just ride it out with him and burn him in the offseason.
They were basically like, yeah, tank. Just go ahead and tank.
They were talking about firing him in like week 4, and now it's week 15. He's still here.
They're sitting there like
he's done everything wrong. He couldn't win right, and now that he's supposed to lose, he couldn't lose right. This is a man who can do nothing right.
No, not like that.
All right, Vitali. Take us away with your 3.
All right.
So you can wrap this madness up.
As I said, I was going to talk about the Patriots a little bit non-fantasy talk, but 19 years, they're finally snapping that streak of a winning season. It was a fun run to get to watch, starting this run out at 10 years old, getting to watch till now. I went back and just looked at it. So under Belichick, the Patriots are 243-91. For those of you at home that are good at math, that's a 72.7% win rate. I don't think we're gonna ever see that again for the Patriots. Not for a long time.
We might never see that again in football.
It's special. Like I said, the only other people that got to enjoy that were the 60s to 80s Cowboys.
And that was when the free agency didn't exist.
Yes. So
you couldn't lose your players.
Yeah, I fully expect this to just turn. But as someone who also enjoys to watch rebuilds and see where a new team can go, a la the Jags, the Browns before OBJ.
Sure.
I'm interested to see where they're going to land because I already project them with losing to the Bills, and it's a toss-up with how much they care against the Jets. So they could end up with a top 12 pick and really come away. If some quarterback slips down boards, we could see them grabbing somebody who's like a Tua, where should have been higher, but because of injuries or something.
I've seen the kid out of BYU. I forget his name, but he's been performing very well. I've seen him be talked about as a potential quarterback target for the Patriots.
Yeah, like I also think this roster definitely
Zach Wilson
performed. Yeah, Zach Wilson. I don't know much about the kid, but I'm gonna definitely dig in as the offseason comes. But I think this roster definitely did kind of what we expected. Like we all hoped that we could sneak into the playoffs, at least continue the streak and stuff like that. But this is an aged Cam Newton coming to a new team. Half the defensive stars, sat out for COVID.
I mean, did you hear one of the most damning things about Cam Newton this past week? You wouldn't have if you were watching the national broadcast, but if you had the hometown radio show on, Scott Zolak was calling out James White because James White had to call the mic for Cam Newton. Cam Newton couldn't read a defense well enough to figure out who the mic was.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, like our local, like big, the Patriots radio station, Scott Zolak, former backup for the Patriots, he's knowledgeable in the sport and he can call things out, and he's the color guy, but his takes have been kind of fading as the years go on. The game's not quite what it used to be for him. If he's calling out things that you're missing and you're still in the locker room and playing, that's a bad day. Like he is seeing things from all the way up here through a TV.
That just sounds bad.
Yeah, like the running back on the field had to basically call the defense for Cam Newton.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing that. Belichick's becoming uncommittal to Cam. There's Stidham's probably coming in. Like, if there's ever a time to start Stidham, just start him now. Let him ride out. He's got a good matchup against the Bills where he's going to have to play. And then he gets a trash can in the Jets. Let's see what he plays like when he just has the full reins and he's starting with the ones. If there's anything there, keep him. If there's not, move on.
Honestly, this season's been pretty damning for Cam Newton, too. Like, this was his chance to come back out and show he still had it, and he has looked worse than ever.
Yeah, the fact that I've heard that some people were projecting him to get a $20 million contract from I think it was the Bengals. Like there was a team out there they were projecting
maybe like a 1 year.
Yeah, like a 1 year. Like
Still, that seems excessive.
like I was like 20 mil for what he's done. I'm like, like maybe if you only get the beginning of the year, Cam, but even then that wasn't that great. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm excited to see where this team goes. I'm glad that Bill's still here to direct this future, but I'm excited as a Pats fan to see what Bill can put on the field with all these new young guns coming out and all these different teams. So
Sure.
But to jump over to a former Patriot, Brady. I think Brady there is something about this man. Him versus the Falcons just always project that he has their number.
A Falcon killed his father as a young boy.
He is like. You saw the pose again of the same pose that's been going around the meme. When you see this, you're in trouble. Him sitting with his head hung low and his hands clasped, like down 7-24 halfway through the third. They come out, score 17 unanswered, tie up the game. The Falcons are only able to get a field goal, and then Brady throws the dagger 46 yards to Antonio Brown to end the game, and then it's just punt after that. Like with how this team's playing, like they're playing kind of like Jared Goff. They come out against some teams and they flop, and you're like, oh, well, that's it, they're done. And then they come out like this, and Brady throws for almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like,
as we spoke about earlier in the show, it is the Falcons who have one of the worst defenses in the league.
The Falcons just can't hold a lead this year.
I mean,
at all.
They haven't been a whole lead since we took them down in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but specifically, I mean, to start the year,
they've been a mentally broken team since that Super Bowl loss.
To start the year, there's 3 horrible losses, and then I think there's like another 2 squished in there. But this one too is just disaster. I don't know, man.
I have them like this team could either be just a one and out, like one and done in the playoffs, or they could just make a run if they catch.
Oh no, they're a one and done.
For me, I think it's in their range of outcomes just because Brady has the experience and they just have so many offensive weapons. If they catch lightning in the bottle at the end of the season,
they're just like the Browns. They would need their defense to play better. As it currently stands, their defense is abysmal. Like the defense we saw at the beginning of the season is no longer there for some reason. You can't win in the playoffs with just offense, especially when you're going to be going up against playoff teams like the Rams or the Packers, both of whom have strong defensive assets on their team.
I mean, you said it yourself. The Falcons just hung 24 on them.
Yeah, like it's
without Julio.
27.
Yeah, no, they would need a very rapid turnaround for me to believe that they have any shot in the playoffs outside of just a first round bump.
I just like when I look at it. If they were in the AFC, I'd say no shot because I think the AFC is too loaded right now. When I look at the NFC, I look at the top teams and I see flaws that could just cost them a game.
Packers or Bucks?
I think I lean Packers, but I can see the Bucks winning that.
Saints or Bucks?
Bucks.
Seahawks or Bucks?
Bucks.
Washington football team or Bucks?
Bucks.
Rams or Bucks?
Bucks.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
I just like I said, when you look at all those teams,
Cardinals or Bucks?
Bucks.
I think you're too high on the Bucks.
I would take, aside from the Washington football team, I would take all those other teams over the Bucks
Yeah.
because their defenses have looked good.
Yes.
Well, not the Seahawks, but
My big thing
Yeah.
here is that there's a lot of question marks that are coming up late in the season right now for these teams. Like we just saw, the Saints, they're not looking good, and if their defense looking good, but it's exploitable.
Well, it's
And
questionable.
Their offense is led by Breeze, and he, as I've seen from some of the medical gurus I follow who do sports medicine, a 42-year-old quarterback with pretty serious rib injuries.
he's 41 right now.
41, 42. In their 40s with rib injuries, high chance he re-injures that. And if he goes down, I just throw them into the garbage. They're done.
Well, it's questionable about the Packers.
The Packers defense, and we've seen before. Like
I mean, their pass defense is fine. Their run defense is, not their one defense is nothing. But I mean, we said it last show. The Bucks have the 30th ranked rushing attack.
Yeah, these aren't the Packers from last year where they were 14-3, but they're
they're
13-3, whatever they were, 14-2. They
right,
were.
and that's why I lean Packers in that matchup. But we've also just seen the Packers collapse in the playoffs multiple times now. So, like I said, there's a path to it. They're not my favorites, but all the teams that I said I picked the Bucks. There's definitely teams where I can see them losing to, like the Seahawks. They basically have to. It's going to be a shootout. Who can score more points? And I can see the Seahawks doing that with their weapons. If the Cardinals get back a full health, can't think of his name right now, but if their quarterback.
Kyler is full
Kyler
health.
Murray, yes.
Kyler is fully healthy at this point.
If he gets back to full go and their defense can figure it out, I think they can beat the Bucks. It's one of those things where, like I said, the Bucks do need to catch lightning in a bottle.
I mean, 406 and 3 passing touchdowns. I'd call that a full go.
But who'd they play this week?
Philadelphia.
There you go.
Philadelphia's defense is better than the Buccaneers.
Yes, currently.
But the Eagles' offense is not quite there yet, and
33-26.
Just saying, they did score well, but I would still take the Bucks' offense over the Eagles. So, like I said, I'm putting the caveat: lightning in a bottle. So I'm just saying that the NFC has flaws, and if everything lands right for them, they can make it. So, but my final point here, Mr. Logan Thomas, keeping all these on semi-positive notes.
Sure.
A man who I found out just recently was in the league since 2014, was actually drafted in the 4th round by Arizona as a quarterback. 3 years in the league. After one, he was cut, put on practice teams, bounced around. Finally getting his shot when he transitioned over to a tight end, which he is still tagged as a tight end quarterback. So maybe we see some trick plays if he goes to the right team. But no, as a tight end, he finally started popping with his athleticism. And this year, he started slow, but since Washington's really kind of realized his skill set, which is his sure hands. Like this guy, yesterday, he wasn't dropping a ball till the end of the game. 15 targets he got. Like he's been getting consistent targets that you see from what we consider more of the upper echelon tight ends. And I think it's about time we put some respect on his name. The only thing I think is a detractor for this man is this is his year 29 season, age 29 season. It does take a little while for tight ends to break out, but I think we could see a couple more good years from Logan Thomas going forward with this team lacking a true number 2 in their pass attack, and their pass attack still kind of figuring out who their actual number 1 quarterback is. I think if next year, if they don't really add anyone serious into this passing offense, he's going to be a great sleeper in the late rounds. He's going to be T.J. Hawkinson of next year. He's going to be Noah Fant for next year. Like, he's a guy you're going to get into double-digit rounds who's going to, at worst, do what he did this year, which is 50 yards and, 5 catches, which, if you're in a half-point PPR league, then you're happy with that out of a tight end. best, you can see what he's doing right now, and that's turning out 80 to 100-yard games. Getting he's sniffed double-digit targets a couple times this year. I'm really into this guy. I'm really digging it. I'm loving seeing his fucking turnaround from 2014 basically being out of the league to making it and being one of the best fantasy options at tight end, let alone just being a tight end.
Sure.
So I'm happy to see this and looking forward to what we could get next year.
I don't know if we're really gonna get much out of him. I don't not much out of him. I don't know if we can comfortably put him in breakout category, just because typically to break out you have to still be developing as a player. He's likely already hit his development ceiling. I think he could pretty consistently be a low end tight end one though. Yeah. As long as Washington doesn't do much to change their target tree. I mean, we've seen Ron Rivera consistently use his tight end in his offenses before, so if he remains their tight end one and they don't add other people to muddy up that tree, sure, I could see him being if you're punting at tight end, being a guy you grab in the 11th or 12th round just to close your roster out.
Yeah.
I am currently on Team Tanyan.
Yes, we know you are. Frankie, you enjoy his time in the sun, because Rodgers doesn't use tight ends.
Guaranteed touchdown every week.
If the Packers ever get Rodgers any other weapons, he goes away.
Yeah.
Touchdown this week. Watch it.
All right, well, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in, and join us later this week for the Week 16 Countdown Show. It'll be our last one of the season, so we look forward to seeing you all there, and best of luck to not get Monday Nightmare tonight.